start with a story. Picture a woman in her 40s. Her life, which should be vibrant and full, has kind of shrunk. It's become this small, quiet space defined by pain. She's just exhausted all the time, holding her head in her hands as if she can physically stop the storm that's raging inside her own brain. For years, she's been battling chronic migraines, this weight gain she can't explain, and worst of all, absolutely terrifying seizures. And she's done it all. She's seen the specialists, she's even had brain surgery, she's taken all the heavy-duty pharmaceuticals, but the pain, the suffering, it just always comes back. If any part of this story feels familiar to you, if you've ever felt like your situation was hopeless, or that nobody was really listening, then you're in the right place. When you've done everything you're supposed to do, everything the experts tell you, and you're still sick, it is so easy to start thinking that you're the problem, that you're just broken somehow. But the real truth is actually so much more empowering than that. I want you to just read that and let it sink in for a second. You are not broken. This isn't about some personal flaw or a lack of willpower. It's about a breakdown in the system. Your body is this incredibly complex machine, and right now it's just failing at a really fundamental level. And that brings us to this long-lost chapter in the history of science. See, this isn't some brand new, cutting-edge discovery. The science that explains this kind of biological breakdown, the science that actually offers a way out, it's not new at all. In fact, it's been sitting right there in plain sight for over a century and a half. So what if I told you that the entire framework for understanding and reversing chronic disease was figured out by some of the greatest minds in biology, only to be pushed aside for a model of medicine that was simpler and, frankly, more profitable? Let's follow the breadcrumbs. Let's trace that unbroken chain of evidence. Okay, so it all kicks off way back in the 1850s with this French scientist, Claude Bernard. He's the one who first said, hey, it's our internal environment that dictates our health. Then, in the 1860s, Antoine Béchamp builds on this with what he called terrain theory. Their famous contemporary, Louis Pasteur, would eventually make a pretty shocking admission about their work. Fast forward to 1931, Dr. Otto Warburg actually wins a Nobel Prize for linking disease to how our cells produce energy. And all of it, leads to the 2020s, where researcher Dr. Trevor Bachmeyer finally connects all these dots to pinpoint the 3 core failures happening in our bodies today. So, what is this terrain theory? This is the best way to understand it. Think of your body as a fish tank. Your cells, they're the fish. Now, conventional medicine sees a sick fish, and what does it do? It says, let's give the fish a drug. And yeah, that might help for a little while, but if the water in the tank is filthy, the fish is just gonna get sick again, right? Terrain theory comes along and says, hang on, forget the fish for a minute. Let's clean the water. Because when the environment, the terrain, is healthy, the fish just naturally gets better. The takeaway is huge. Stop treating the symptom and start fixing the system. And this is unbelievable. Louis Pasteur, the father of germ theory, the guy whose work literally built the foundation of the modern pharmaceutical industry. On his deathbed, he admits his rival was right all along. He confessed that the germ isn't the real problem. The environment that the germ lives in, the terrain, that's everything. Okay, so a few decades later, Dr. Otto Warburg takes this whole idea down to the cellular level. He won the Nobel Prize for it. He proved that when our little cellular power plants, our mitochondria, can't burn fuel cleanly with oxygen, the whole system starts to break down. This failure to produce energy is a massive part of what makes our internal terrain toxic. And that brings us right up to today. Researcher Dr. Trevor Bachmeyer basically stood on the shoulders of all these giants. He took all this historical science, combined it with decades of his own observations, and figured out exactly how our modern world, our food, our stress, our environment, is wrecking our internal terrain, leading to what he calls the 3 biological failures. And here it is. This is the aha moment. This is where 160 years of science that was pushed to the side finally explains all that unseen suffering we started with. And these aren't just abstract ideas, they are real, measurable states in the body. For the woman in our story, they explained literally everything. The problem is, these 3 failures don't just happen one by one. No, they're all tangled up together. They create this destructive feedback loop, a vicious cycle of decay. Each failure makes the others worse, and together, they become this biological juggernaut that just steamrolls the body's natural ability to heal itself. So failure number 1 is what we call the fire. This is systemic inflammation. We're not talking about the hot, swollen ankle you get when you sprain it. This is a quiet, smoldering fire that's burning all throughout your body all the time. It's like your immune system's fire alarm is stuck in the on position, and your own defenses start to burn down the house, damaging healthy tissue, especially in the brain. For the woman in our story, her score for this internal fire was a blistering 8 out of 10. This right here is the biological engine driving her constant migraines and immune flare-ups. It's her brain's own immune system, just relentlessly attacking healthy connections. Next up, failure number 2, the broken fuel line. You probably know it as insulin resistance. So picture this, your cells are desperate for energy, and your bloodstream is packed with fuel, with sugar. But your cells have gone deaf to insulin, which is the key that opens the door to let the fuel in. So your brain cells are literally starving to death while swimming in a sea of fuels they can't use. Her score on this one? A 7.5 out of 10. This is the direct cause of that crippling brain fog she felt, and the weight gain that made no sense. Her body couldn't get fuel into the engine, so it just kept packing it away as fat, while her brain was running on empty. And, of course, that broken fuel line leads directly to failure number 3, dead batteries. This is an ATP shortage. ATP is literally the energy currency of life. It's what your cells spend to do anything. And this is Dr. Warburg's Nobel-winning discovery in action. Because the fuel line is broken, the mitochondrial power plants don't get the supplies they need. They just sputter and fail, leaving the entire body in a state of energy bankruptcy. For the woman in our story, her score here was catastrophic, a 9.5 out of 10. This is it. This is the biological root of her seizures. Without enough ATP, her neurons have no power to maintain stability. They just misfire, violently, chaotically. The fire, the broken fuel line, and the dead batteries, they created the perfect storm inside her brain. But here's the good news. Once you truly understand the problem, you can build the solution. And there is a clear, structured, and most importantly, reproducible way to reverse these failures. It's called the 4-milestone healing arc. And listen, the order here is absolutely critical. You cannot skip steps. It just won't work. Step 1, you have to put out the fire. You must resolve that systemic inflammation to stop the damage. Only then can you move on to step 2 and repair the fuel line, restoring insulin sensitivity. Once the fuel can finally get into the cells, then you can work on step 3, recharging the batteries and cranking up ATP production. And finally, step 4 is all about sustained maintenance, creating long-term resilience so this never happens again.
Look, this isn't a timeline based on hope or wishful thinking. It's a biological timeline. It is a precise biological roadmap to restoring order to your internal environment and achieving what you could call biological sovereignty, where you are finally back in the driver's seat of your own health. And that brings us to maybe the single most important idea in this whole explainer. Your health, your condition, it's not a life sentence. It is a dynamic biological process that you have incredible power to influence. Let me say that one more time. Your body is not broken. You are simply operating in a state of being inflamed, insulin resistant, and energy bankrupt. And the incredible news is that all 3 of these biological failures are reversible. What you thought was a diagnosis is really just a description of a dirty fish tank. And you now have the map to clean the water. If this was eye-opening for you, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more of this kind of biological intelligence that puts you back in control. And hey, if you have a specific health challenge you'd like us to look into for you, just send us an email to inquire about getting a free, personalized biological intelligence dossier. We do the research so you can reclaim your biology.